On Christmas Eve, Noah woke up to the sound of faint jingles from the neighbors' holiday lights. Outside, snow blanketed the ground, glimmering under the early morning street lamps. The world looked peaceful, perfect, like a postcard. Inside, his house was warm, full of the usual scents of cinnamon and pine. But for Noah, nothing felt right. There was a tight knot in his chest, a weight he couldn't shake. He knew today wouldn't be like other days. He sensed tension lingering in the air. Even before his father stepped into the room, Daniel, his dad, appeared in the doorway holding a long, crumpled sheet of paper. His expression was calm, controlled, but there was an unmistakable edge in his eyes. He extended the paper to Noah without a word. Noah took it slowly, feeling the weight of it in his hands. His father's voice cut through the quiet, sharp and cold. "Noah, you have things to finish before dinner." It was simple, almost casual, but every word hit like a hammer. He unfolded the paper. The list stared back at him in neat, deliberate handwriting. Clean the house. Prepare the entire dinner. Wrap all the gifts. Set the table. Handle everything your mother asked for. And the last line made him stop breathing for a second. Do it alone. You owe us. It wasn't just a list of chores. It was a verdict, a reminder, a demand wrapped in ink. Noah's hands shook slightly. He read the words over and over, trying to make sense of the cold reality. For years, Noah had done exactly what his parents expected. He had run errands, cleaned, cooked, babysat, and sacrificed his own time because his parents had convinced him it was his responsibility. He believed. Then when they said the family needed him to step up, he believed that what he was doing mattered. Until yesterday. Until he overheard something that changed everything. He remembered standing behind the kitchen door, frozen in silence, listening to voices he had trusted for years. His father's tone was low and dismissive. "He thinks he's helping us. Honestly, it's easier this way. Let him handle everything. He doesn't need to know we could manage without him." Noah's mother had murmured agreement. Every word landed like a blow. Every syllable burned. The betrayal wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet, insidious, and it cut deeper than any argument ever could. He realized that all his effort, all his time, all his sacrifice, it had been taken for granted. Not just ignored, but exploited. He wasn't appreciated. He was a tool. The lists in his hands now felt like a confirmation of that truth. The chores weren't a holiday task. They were a test, a demonstration, a reminder that his parents expected him to serve them without question. Something in Noah shifted at that moment. Anger simmered, cold and steady. Hurt transformed into resolve. He folded the paper slowly, every crease echoing years of being overlooked. A thought formed quietly, sharp and undeniable. They don't see me. They don't appreciate me. Maybe it's time I make them notice that Noah didn't think about yelling or crying or confronting them immediately. That would be too obvious, too fleeting. He wanted something that would make them understand, not just today, but forever. The idea of revenge flickered in his mind. Not violent or loud, but precise. Something that would let them feel the weight of his absence. Something that would make them realize, finally, that he wasn't just a shadow moving through their lives, doing what they demanded. But first, he had to act normal. He couldn't let them suspect what was brewing inside him. So he set the paper aside and began his chores. The house needed cleaning, the dinner needed preparing, the gifts needed wrapping. He moved through each task with practiced efficiency. But his mind was elsewhere, running through plans, imagining outcomes, calculating reactions. Every sweep of the broom, every dish he scrubbed, Every plate he polished became part of a larger, unspoken strategy. The work was mundane, but the purpose behind it made his actions feel charged, almost electric. Even as he worked, his emotions raged. He was angry, yes, but also deeply wounded. How could they not see him? How could they take his time and effort for granted? He remembered the small sacrifices, the missed parties, the skipped outings, the countless hours of helping without being asked, without recognition. And now, at the end of the year, at the height of the holiday season, they handed him this list. As if none of it mattered. The betrayal wasn't just yesterday. It had been building, layer by layer, until it had become a crushing weight he could no longer ignore. Noah's mind replayed every memory of being overlooked, every moment he had hoped for a word of gratitude, every time his contributions were dismissed. He felt a strange mixture of sadness and determination. Sadness for all the years lost, determination because finally he felt a sense of power. Not the kind his parents had over him, but the kind he had over the situation. He could change the course of the evening. He could make them feel something they had never made him feel. Recognition of his worth, or at least a hint of accountability. Even as the snow fell outside and the smell of pine and cinnamon filled the air, the warmth of the house felt hollow. His parents moved around him, oblivious to the storm inside. Daniel hummed as he adjusted the lights. His mother arranged ornaments on the tree, both smiling in the way families always did at Christmas. And Noah, for the first time, felt a sharp, undeniable separation. He was there physically, but mentally and emotionally, he was somewhere else entirely focused, calculating, awake to truths they had never admitted. He paused in the kitchen, looking at the list once more. The words, "Do it alone. You owe us," burned on the page. They weren't just a command, they were a mirror, reflecting everything he had endured. In that reflection, Noah saw himself differently. He wasn't just a helper. He was someone who could make choices, someone whose actions had meaning beyond the chores. The betrayal had awakened something inside him, something quiet but strong. The realization that he didn't have to accept being used, that he could respond, and that response could be deliberate, measured, and unforgettable. The idea of revenge lingered, not as a plan yet, but as a seed. How would he act? How far would he go? Every thought spiraled, growing in intensity. Each chore completed was a step closer to the moment when he could decide. The anger, the sadness, the hurt, they weren't distractions. They were tools, sharpening his mind, giving him focus. He didn't want chaos or destruction. He wanted acknowledgement. He wanted them to feel, even briefly, the weight of being taken for granted. As he finished dusting the living room, Noah realized the night was slipping away. The house would soon be ready, the dinner nearly complete, the gifts wrapped. Everything looked perfect. To anyone else, the evening would appear normal. To his parents, it would seem like Christmas Eve was proceeding as usual. But Noah knew. It wasn't normal, not for him. He felt a quiet tension coiling in his chest. This night, this ordinary, peaceful night, was the night everything changed. Because for the first time, Noah wasn't just a part of the background. He was awake, aware, and in control. The betrayal had been a wake-up call, a sharp crack that split his old self from the new. The chores, the dinner, the list, all of it had been a test. Not of his obedience, but of his spirit. And he had passed the first part. Now, the question remained. What would he do with the power he had discovered? How would he respond to the people who had spent years taking him for granted? The snow fell heavier outside, and the wind whispered against the windows, echoing the storm inside Noah. He folded the list once more, placing it carefully in his pocket. He didn't yet know the plan. He didn't yet know the outcome. But he knew this. Tonight he would no longer be invisible. Tonight, something would shift. And Christmas Eve, the night of warmth and light, would become the night that changed everything. Noah moved through the house like a ghost, completing every task on the Christmas Eve list. But his mind wasn't on cleaning or cooking. His thoughts were sharp, electric, circling one idea over and over. Revenge. The chores, the gifts, the dinner, it all became a background rhythm for the real work. The planning of something that could finally make his parents see him. He scrubbed the counters, arranged the silverware, polished the plates, all with quiet precision, that every motion carried the weight of his anger. He wasn't angry at the work itself. He was angry at the betrayal, the years of being used, the feeling of being invisible as he moved from room to room. He let his imagination run wild. He pictured what he could do to shake them, to make them notice the pain they had caused. He imagined confronting them at dinner, calm and cold, dropping the truth in their laps. He thought about hiding the gifts, leaving the turkey raw, telling them he was done. Each scenario brought a flicker of satisfaction, a pulse of power he hadn't felt in years. He could control this night, this moment, and finally turn the tables. But with every plan, a voice inside him whispered caution. Revenge wasn't simple. It wasn't just about making them feel pain. It was about choice, and choices had consequences. What if he went too far? What if he damaged their relationship permanently? What if, in seeking to punish them, he lost himself? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. He paused at the staircase, looking at the living room where the tree lights glowed softly. His parents moved around, laughing quietly, oblivious to the storm brewing inside him. The contrast between their calm and his turmoil sharpened every feeling. Noah's mind raced through memories of the past year. Every weekend he had sacrificed, every skipped event, every time he bent to their demands, he relived it all with startling clarity. He remembered helping his mother clean the house, while she chatted on the phone, oblivious to how much effort it took. He remembered baking cookies for Christmas parties he wasn't invited to, wrapping gifts while his father complained about the work he himself had asked Noah to do. Every memory fueled the fire of his desire to respond, to make them acknowledge the weight of their expectations. He moved back to the kitchen, checking the progress of the dinner. The roast smelled perfect, the mashed potatoes creamy, the vegetables roasted to golden perfection. It should have been a night of celebration, of warmth, but for Noah it was a battleground. Each perfectly arranged plate was a challenge, a demonstration, that he could meet every demand they placed on him, but on his own terms. He smiled faintly, imagining the moment when the family would sit down, and he would hold the truth in his hands, waiting to release it. At the same time, doubt crept in. He questioned whether revenge would feel as satisfying as he imagined. Would he actually feel powerful or just empty? He had rehearsed confrontations, imagined clever exposures, planned subtle sabotages, but now, standing in the quiet house, the weight of his choices pressed down on him. He realized that the very act of revenge could change him, make him someone he didn't want to become. He could hurt them, yes, but at what cost? His own peace, his own future, maybe even his own family. The duality of his feelings gnawed at him. Anger and hurt wanted one thing: immediate response, visible payback. Morality, reason, and self-respect urged patience, restraint, and thought. He moved mechanically, cleaning windows and dusting shelves, each swipe of the cloth a meditation on what he would do next. The house reflected his internal struggle. Spotless, perfect on the surface, but beneath, tension simmered, unresolved. Every ornament he placed, every table napkin folded, felt like preparation not for a holiday, but for a reckoning as the evening deepened. Noah found himself in the gift room, surrounded by presents wrapped in bright paper and shiny boughs. The irony wasn't lost on him. These gifts, carefully selected, meant to bring joy, symbolized years of giving that went unnoticed. He picked up a small box and held it in his hands, imagining how it would feel if he simply left it on the floor. Unwrapped, unacknowledged, he imagined their surprise, confusion, guilt. His pulse quickened. He could make them feel something real tonight. Something raw, the way he had felt every day they used him. Yet, even in this moment of plotting, he considered the other side. His parents weren't monsters. They believed they were acting in the family's best interest, even if their methods were cruel. Daniel thought he was teaching responsibility. His mother thought she was protecting him. They were flawed, yes, but they weren't evil. That made the idea of revenge even more complicated. It wasn't just about punishment. It was about forcing recognition, about making them see him as a person, not a servant. The desire to be seen was stronger than the desire to hurt, yet it came wrapped in the same dangerous package. Retaliation. Noah continued to move through the house, placing dishes, adjusting silverware, checking the roast, all the while running different strategies through his mind. He imagined confronting them verbally, letting the words spill out slowly, watching their reactions. He imagined leaving, walking out, disappearing into the snow, feeling their panic. He imagined subtle acts of sabotage, small enough to be noticeable, large enough to sting. Every option was weighed, turned over, considered, and discarded. He realized that revenge wasn't just one act. It was a series of choices, each carrying consequences he couldn't yet predict. The tension built as the clock ticked closer to dinner. The house, now immaculate, smelled of roast, spices, and pine. The table was set with precision, every detail perfect. The gifts were arranged neatly under the tree. The contrast between the outward perfection and the storm of thought inside. Noah created a surreal sensation. He felt like he was standing on the edge of something enormous, a decision that could change the family forever. The calm before the storm pressed down on him, making his heart beat louder than the ticking clock. Finally, Noah paused in the hallway, staring at the stairs leading to the living room. His parents' laughter floated up faintly, oblivious, as they adjusted the ornaments, poured themselves wine, and arranged the holiday space. It should have been comforting, but for Noah it was fuel. He felt the full weight of being overlooked, unappreciated, and used. He remembered the list. Do it alone, you owe us. He felt the sting, the humiliation, the frustration. He could no longer ignore the reality of his position in the family hierarchy, the way they had taken his effort for granted for years. And yet, the choice remained. He could act now, make them feel the consequences of their neglect. Or he could wait, be strategic, and find a way that allowed him to assert his worth without destroying the family. The tension of that decision was almost unbearable. Every scenario played in his mind like a film, every possible reaction unfolding in real time. He felt the power of knowledge, of awareness, of control over a situation where he had previously been powerless. Noah realized that the night was no longer about chores or dinner. It was about him, about his recognition, about reclaiming his place in the family. He understood that whatever he chose to do would have repercussions. But for the first time, he felt like he was standing on equal ground. The storm inside him had transformed from raw anger into something more focused purpose. He would not be invisible anymore. The house was quiet now, except for the low hum of Christmas lights. Noah folded the chore list and placed it carefully in his pocket. He wasn't ready to act yet, but the planning, the mental preparation, the internal reckoning, it had all begun. Tonight, he realized, everything could change. He could decide the course of the evening, the course of his relationship with his parents, and perhaps even his own understanding of himself. The night stretched ahead, full of possibility, and Noah felt both fear and exhilaration. For the first time, he felt truly awake. Not just a helper, not just a son carrying out duties, but a person with choices, with power, and with the ability to shape his own fate. The storm inside him had not yet broken, but the pieces were in place. The game had begun. The night was far from over, and the moment of truth, the moment when he would face the decision of whether to act or to wait, was drawing closer with every tick of the clock. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the Christmas tree lights. Outside, snowflakes drifted lazily down, covering the world in a blanket of white. Inside, every detail was perfect. The table was set, the roast glistened under the warm glow of the chandelier, the mashed potatoes were creamy, and every gift was wrapped neatly beneath the tree. To anyone else, it would have looked like a perfect Christmas Eve. To Noah, it felt like a stage, a battlefield, and a test all at once. Stood at the foot of the stairs, holding the folded chore list in his hands. Every word, every crease, every demand from his father was burned into his memory. Do it alone. You owe us. It had been a challenge, a judgment, a reminder of all the years he had given without recognition. And now, finally, the moment of decision had arrived. He could act. He could make them feel something, anything, the way he had felt for years. The thought of confrontation pulsed through him, sharp and electric. He moved quietly into the living room, his parents' laughter floating down the hallway. They were arranging ornaments and placing wine glasses on the table, unaware that Noah was standing there, poised at the edge of revelation. The sight of their oblivious happiness made his chest tighten. He could have shouted, slammed the list down, told them exactly what he had heard, what he had endured. He could have walked out, leaving the dinner to collapse, letting them feel panic and guilt in real time. The temptation was strong. He imagined the look of shock on his father's face, the horror in his mother's eyes. A tiny thrill ran through him at the thought. But even as the images played in his mind, another feeling began to grow. He felt the weight of choice pressing down on him. Revenge wasn't just a moment of satisfaction. It was a path that could break relationships, leave scars that would never heal, and trap him in a cycle of anger he might never escape. His thoughts slowed for a moment, and he realized the power he had. He could hurt them. Yes, but he could also change the evening, the family dynamic, and perhaps even himself if he chose wisely. Noah approached the table, placing the list gently on the polished wood. The sound of the paper sliding across the surface drew his parents' attention. Daniel looked up first, confusion flashing across his face. "What's this?" he asked, his voice calm but curious. Noah took a deep breath. "My Christmas Eve," he said, voice steady but trembling at the edges. "Every year." His eyes met his father's, then his mother's, and he saw a flicker of recognition in their expressions. They had no idea what was coming, yet they felt the weight of anticipation in the room. Daniel's brow furrowed. "You completed everything, didn't you?" Noah nodded slowly. "I always do. That's the problem." The words hung in the air, like a cold wind. He told them everything, the conversation he had overheard, the years of work that had gone unnoticed, the sacrifices he had made that had been taken for granted. Every memory, every disappointment, every moment of hurt spilled out in calm, measured sentences. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He simply laid the truth bare. The room went silent. His mother's hand went to her mouth. Daniel's eyes fell to the table. For the first time, the parents who had always seemed in control were silent, vulnerable, caught in a moment of realization. Noah watched them, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and fear. This was the moment he had imagined for months, the culmination of his internal struggle. But it was different in reality, more fragile, more alive, more human. He felt the tug of temptation again, the pull to push harder, to punish, to make them feel guilt as sharp as the pain he had endured. But the anger that had fueled him all day had softened into something more precise. He wanted recognition, not ruin. He wanted change, not destruction. He wanted to be seen, not to break them. That clarity steadied him, and he felt a strange sense of calm amid the tension. "I'm not doing this anymore," Noah said, his voice firm. "Not like this. If you want me to help, you ask. And you help too. I'm your son, not your worker." The words shocked them. His mother's eyes widened, and she swallowed hard. Daniel's lips parted, but he said nothing. The silence stretched, heavy and full of possibility. Noah realized that the power of honesty was stronger than the power of revenge. To speak truthfully, to confront without malice, could be more transformative than any act of retaliation. Daniel finally cleared his throat. "You're right," he said quietly. "We were wrong. We took advantage of you, and we need to fix it." His voice trembled slightly, not with fear but with the weight of understanding. His mother nodded. "Starting tonight. Sit down, Noah. Let us serve you for once." The tension in Noah's chest began to loosen, relief mixed with lingering hurt, creating a strange, bittersweet sensation. This wasn't a perfect resolution. The past couldn't be erased. The years of being overlooked and undervalued couldn't vanish overnight. But the acknowledgement, the apology, the recognition, these were steps toward something better. Steps toward equality, respect, and perhaps even healing. Noah sat at the table, the roasted turkey steaming in front of him, the mashed potatoes creamy and golden, the gifts glittering under the tree. He looked at his parents and saw them differently. Now, not as oppressors, not as tyrants, but as flawed humans capable of error, capable of learning, capable of change. And in that realization, he felt a shift inside himself as well. He was no longer just a boy carrying burdens quietly. He was someone with voice, with choice, with the ability to influence the world around him. As they began to eat, the conversation was careful at first, tentative, but gradually laughter returned, softer this time, tinged with humility and awareness. The house felt warmer than it had all day, not just because of the lights or the fire, but because the tension that had gripped the room was easing. Noah realized that revenge, the kind he had imagined, wasn't necessary. Honesty, clarity, and courage had achieved something far more powerful. He thought about what could have happened if he had chosen differently. If he had yelled, slammed doors, hidden gifts, or left the house in anger, the satisfaction might have been immediate, but the aftermath would have been long and bitter. Instead, he had chosen the harder path, the path of truth, confrontation without malice, and the assertion of his own worth. And already, he felt the reward not in punishment inflicted, but in understanding gained. The snow continued to fall outside, thick and silent, coating the world in a serene blanket. Inside, the lights reflected off the polished surfaces and the house felt alive in a different way. Noah realized that the evening had changed him. He understood more clearly than ever the power of choice, the weight of action, and the subtle strength in standing up for oneself without destroying others. When dessert was served, he felt a quiet satisfaction, not the sharp thrill of revenge, but a deep, lasting sense of resolution. He had confronted the betrayal, he had exposed the truth, and he had done it without losing himself in anger. The list that had once represented control and oppression now symbolized something different, a turning point, a moment of awakening, a night when the balance of power shifted not through punishment, but through courage and honesty. As the family sat together, exchanging cautious smiles, Noah realized something important. Revenge might provide a fleeting rush, a momentary taste of satisfaction, but it rarely leads to peace. What he had discovered tonight was that recognition, communication, and courage could achieve something far greater. He had taken control not by hurting them, but by asserting his presence, his voice, and his right to be seen. The night stretched ahead, filled with warmth, laughter, and fragile hope. Noah knew the journey wasn't over. There would be moments in the future when he would have to assert himself again, when the past would threaten to pull him back into resentment. But for now, he felt a quiet victory, a sense of empowerment, and the first real taste of balance in a family that had long been unequal. He looked at the lights reflecting on the tree, at the carefully wrapped gifts, at the parents who had finally seen him, and he smiled softly. The storm inside him had not vanished entirely, but it had shifted. It was no longer a storm of rage, but a force of awareness, a guide for future decisions. Christmas Eve, which had begun with betrayal, had transformed into a moment of clarity, growth, and understanding. Noah realized that true satisfaction didn't come from revenge. It came from standing up, speaking truth, and choosing a path that upheld one's own dignity. He had learned in one night a lesson that would shape him for the rest of his life. The power of honesty, courage, and self-respect outweighed the fleeting pleasure of revenge. And as he sat at the table, sharing this imperfect, fragile, but meaningful Christmas Eve with his parents, he understood that everything had changed, not through punishment, but through the simple, profound act of being seen.